G'day guys, welcome back to Supercoach with DR. Hope they're all going well. For today's video, I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I want to take a look at our 2022 loophole situation. So if you're new to Supercoach or you don't know what a loophole is, it's basically a strategy that we use in Supercoach to take advantage of our vice captaincy score. Now, when you log into Supercoach, you'll notice that you can select a player as your vice captain or as your captain. So long story short, what we can do is we can put a player as our vice captain. Let's just say Jack McRae plays on a Friday night and he bangs out a nice 140 and we think to ourselves, yeah, lovely, I'd love to use that as my captaincy score. What we can then do is put our loophole or our non-playing player on the field, select him as our captain, and then make sure that whoever we take off field, we keep as our emergency. And then what will happen is that your vice captain's score will double and we'll get a nice 280 for that Jack McRae 140. And it also allows us to have a little bit more luck with our rookie roulette. We can take advantage of a nice score that maybe we didn't have on field. Just pop your loophole on and make sure you've had that player as the emergency. Now, what do we actually look for when we're selecting loophole? I think there's 4 major things. Let's take a look at them. At number 1, and call me Captain Obvious here, but they must be a non-playing player. At number 2, they need to have a friendly fixture. I've got it there. Sunday games are absolutely ideal. We'll have a look at that in a minute. They must come at a cheap price. Obviously, 102k is absolutely ideal. We don't want to be spending 140, 150k on a loophole type player. Just wasted money that you can use elsewhere on your side. And at number 4, I've got that they must have DPP status. Super important so that you can obviously utilize them over different lines. Now, it was really interesting to go back and see how I succeeded with my 2021 loophole strategy. I did decide to obviously go with the loophole, and it was this man on the screen, Aiden Fife. You can see there from the chart, ticked all the 4 major boxes that I look for in a loophole. So how do I actually go with him? Well, I'll tell you in a minute, but before I get to that, just want to show you this. Now, I got this table from Twitter, created by Supercoach Data. It does a bloody amazing job, so make sure that you follow him. This is basically an outline of how successful people have been with their captaincy scores. So it's either through the vice captaincy using the loophole or just straight out captain. Now, I'm 26 overall on this list. As you can see there, DR's Rusty Spoons had a VC hit of about 41%. So in other words, 41% of the time, I did use a loophole to take advantage of the vice captaincy score. So, you know, we're getting close to around the 50% mark there. So it does go to show that, well, me personally anyway, I did really take advantage of the loophole. But this is a thing, and this is what really got me. And I didn't realize this until I actually took a look at some of these numbers from last year. I only used Fife, who was my loophole, twice during the season. Now, what's the reason for that? It comes back to JD's point that he makes, and JD's not a fan of the loophole, and that's because he says it will work itself out. So in other words, players are going to get injured, rookies that we didn't expect to get dropped maybe for the first few rounds will get dropped. There's most likely going to be someone in your side that won't be available for a particular week. And for me, I had a lot of those type players. You know, Ridley was one early on in the season, had a raft of rookies that for some reason didn't get games, and I didn't end up using Fife near as much as I thought that I actually would. So if you have decided to go with the loophole strategy, here are some options that I think you should look at, and then I'll talk a little bit about strategy. So there are probably 3 teams that I think have the friendliest fixture in regards to loophole. That's the Hawks, Freo, and the Suns. What I've done here is I've come up with my own little point system. So take this with a grain of salt. I've just made that myself. Take it or leave it sort of thing. But what I've done is I've allocated a certain amount of points to a time slot. So Friday night, you get 0 points because obviously you can't really take advantage of that loophole unless there's a Thursday night game, which I'm sure there are some during the season, or I know there are some. Saturday afternoon, I've given 1 point. Again, still not really ideal. Saturday night, I've given 3 points. The Sunday, absolutely ideal. I've given 5 points. And there are a few games on a Monday also. I've given a Monday 6 points. That's absolutely ideal. So at the end of the day, I've given Hawthorne 35 points, Freo 32, and then Gold Coast 31. So they're probably the 3 friendliest teams, in my opinion anyway, just with the strategy that I've used here. Now, what sort of players do we look for here? So I've got a couple from Freo, a couple from Gold Coast, and then 3 from Hawthorne. You will notice there are 2 that are in bold, and I'll go through those blokes in a minute. It's got to do with the new strategy that I'm thinking of for myself for this year anyway. So from Freo, you've got Carl Warner, defensive mid, 102k. Yeah, looks all right there. You got Benning as a ruck forward. The issue with the ruck forward, I think, this year is that we don't have someone like a Rowan Marshall. you know, you do have a Tim English, who I'm not keen on. A few other blokes in there, a Luke Jackson, if you're keen on him. But they're not players that I'm even looking at this stage. So if it could be for you, maybe not. From Gold Coast, Bodie Yuland. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that one correctly. Again, similar to Warner, a defensive mid, rookie price, 102k. Then, geez, this is another bit of a dodgy one to pronounce. Patrick Mertiga. Could be absolutely butchering that, and I probably am. Another ruck forward at 123,900. So right at the top of the price point that you'd be looking for there. But probably Warner and Yuland, I think, would appeal to most people, because I don't know too many teams that are going to be starting a ruck forward in their forward line to begin with. Then we get to Hawthorne, so probably the friendliest team in my opinion. You got Nettie Long, mid forward. Always like a mid forward, that's good. 102k, again, looks to be ideal. But then I've got two players here that I've got highlighted or bolded, and that's Jai Sarong and Sam Butler. Now, why have I highlighted these? It brings me to another strategy that I'm thinking about for this year, and it goes back to one of the four major points that I look for in a loophole, and that is for them to be a non-playing player. Now, what I'm looking to do with this strategy is possibly get the best of both worlds. Now, I'm going a little bit of JD and a little bit of what I've done in the past here. And again, it's just a thought at this stage. Not exactly sure where I'm going to go, but just hear me out for a sec. So, someone like a Sam Butler, you know, mid-forward, DPP, 117k. Now, why I like this is the fact that I don't necessarily think that Butler will be playing round one. I think there's a chance that he will, but I think there's probably a few other players in front of him at this stage for a spot in that 22. But on the other hand, I do expect him to be getting some games sometime during the season. Same as maybe a Sarong. Now, I've probably got Butler a little bit ahead of him at this stage. They're both the same price, both mid-forward, so a lot of water to go into the bridge. We'll listen to what happens during the preseason. But what I'm thinking with this strategy is to select a loophole that I think will be playing at some stage during the year, but not necessarily for the first few rounds of the season, because as JD says, and I'll refer back to that a lot when I'm talking about the loophole, it will most likely work itself out. So what I'm thinking is that you might be able to utilise one of these blokes for the first few weeks as your loophole. Hopefully then they might have a chance of coming into the side, and probably by that stage you've got other rookies that are going to be dropped, possibly some injuries, and you can look to use those blokes as your loophole. So that's why I'm a bit of a fan of maybe starting a Butler or a Sarong. And again, these are just two examples that I'm just putting out there. There may be a raft of other players that we could look to do this strategy with, not necessarily from the teams that I've listed here, because I think I've gone through most of the DPP options, but you might look at even another side, maybe not with a friendlier fixture, but there may be a player that you like a little bit better or think may have a chance coming into the side. Now, another thing you could think about is maybe a really highly rated rookie that is still at a cheap price, may have had a little issue during the preseason. They were looking to cement their, or not cement their spot, but maybe get a game in round one. Maybe they've had a little bit of an injury setback and they're 3-4 weeks away. Why not maybe look to select one of those type of players in order to take advantage of that loophole early, and then later on, hopefully they come in. So you haven't just got a wasted pick, and you can actually maybe make some money. And remember, I always come back to this, with this strategy, there will most likely be players that are out due to injury or they've simply been dropped. So they're my thoughts. Let me know what you think, guys. You're going to start a loophole? Let me know in the comments section down below. Stay tuned, as I said, for more player profiles. Spills and I also just recorded the first episode of our Supercoach Swordplay podcast for 2022. Remember, we do have a separate channel for that. Just search Supercoach Swordplay on YouTube and you should get to that. Apart from that, guys, take care. Hope that you're well, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye.